Hey there, this is Alice, and today we're making a video, or I guess I'm making a video on the difference between buying to build and buying outright a house, townhouse, or condo, and the differences and the pros and cons of each. And the reason I'm doing this video is because over the past 2 weeks, you've noticed I haven't made any videos. That's because I've been working, had some vacation in there. I've noticed a big uptick in people contacting me about land and about, yeah, cheap land, land that looks buildable, land that doesn't look buildable. And so I wanted to kind of walk you through the pros and cons of each because it doesn't come up until you get deep into it. And I want to make sure that before you even think about land, you know what you're getting into and if you want to get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do here, because I'm a very visual person, is show Zillow. Not that I use Zillow personally, but I do keep my RSS feed on Zillow. And for those of you who are like, oh, I get RSS feeds from Million Agents, it's all the same thing. They're all coming. Okay, so I'm going to show just some houses because I like to view things and you probably do too. Okay, so the difference between these beautiful condos and houses and all these is that you can easily or more easily get a loan, a conventional loan. So you can put 20% down, even 10%. I don't really recommend 3.5% FHA, especially in this market where it's very competitive. You could probably do it. You can get a loan on a house, condo, townhouse, TIC with two different banks that do TICs for San Francisco. And a TIC is a tenant in common unit, which is kind of like a condo. You can get those pretty easily. And that's because banks like to lend to primary houses and plots of lands with structures that are usable and livable. And that's because the likelihood of a default on a raw piece of land is much higher than on a house. And there are a plethora of other reasons, but I'm not a lender, just telling you a little bit about how they think. One thing too, before I start, if you're buying a plot of land or whatever you're doing, make sure to have a professional involved. I am not a real estate attorney. If I'm showing you a plot of land or a house on here and I'm saying something about it, this is just informational. Every plot is different. So don't trust any video on the internet. Be sure to verify your plot and verify that everything you want to do on your plot is possible, if that is what you're going to do. Okay, so unless you're buying in all cash, if you want to basically what I'm trying to say, if you want to buy a random plot of land that is missing utilities and you don't have all cash, that might be really hard to do without owner financing. Now, owner financing, I haven't seen it too common in the Bay Area. I see it more in like really rural places. But you could always ask for owner financing, and that's where the seller sells it to you. You give them a percentage of down payment. Usually it's pretty high, like could be 30% down, or maybe they're like, I don't know, 40% down, and then you pay them like 5% interest, which is pretty common in rural land purchases. But not so much in the Bay Area. Usually people want the cash right away so they can do stuff with it. And okay, where was I going to go? Oh yeah, I was going to show you some plots of land. So I'm going to start here because there's so many plots of land over here in East Bay. And there tend to be a lot in the woods over here. So I have had quite a few. There we go. So you might be looking at a few of these and think, wow, these are really affordable. And like, what's the deal? So the deal with some of these, I love to when they don't put any photos of the property, even if it's just a bunch of a thicket, it's much more convenient to see. Whoop. Goodness, I'm already losing my voice and it is not even. Okay, so this one also is not showing you what I want to know. So when you're analyzing this affordable plot, these aren't too affordable. These might be easier to build on because they're more expensive. You'll notice here, like this is a diagram. To do something like this will require it has been permitted, you've gotten approval from like the city or the county. And for those of you who are like city or county, San Francisco is a city and a county. And it kind of depends where that lot is on where you want to get approval from. For instance, in El Granada, it is an unincorporated town of San Mateo County. So you'll go to San Mateo County and the planner there to talk to them. And they will definitely guide you on who to talk to. So this one, as you can see, is in Oakland. So they've done all these illustrations. Sometimes when they've done these for you, they've already gotten it entitled, and that's a big deal. Another, I'm not going to get into that right now. That's overly complex for what we're going for. Okay, so 395 days on market. Usually I look at that and I'm like, okay, why? So I'll ask why the seller's selling, and I want to ask, what's going on? Why has it been on market so long? Another thing you look at, maybe it's not been viewed a lot. So maybe it's a fire sale and just no one has had the vision or dough to do it. So these I usually read with a grain of salt, because no agent is going to be like, or not all the agents will be upfront and be like, this lot is not buildable, or it will be very expensive. And we all want to put our properties in the best light, right? Because we want to get all of you or all the buyers to contact us so that we know what the interest level is, and get a sale, because the more eyes, the better for our sellers. So any available architectural plans, reports, So with this, you got to ask, and when we're working together, we're always going to ask for the disclosures. That's like the key number one thing. Lot number one, plans include construction of 2,000 square foot home. So you can imagine if a 2,000 square foot home is going for like 1.7, 2 million, 2.5, depending where you're looking, maybe more. Or maybe it's in a less desirable area and going for a lot cheaper. If it's that much already created, imagine how much it would be to build that, right? So think about, you need to have utilities on the property. That's really important for getting the loan. That's the other thing I need to mention. So you want to have utilities on the property. You want water, electricity, and you're going to need to have access to the property. So you want to make sure there's access. I really like looking at these maps. So it looks like they've built it out, but they just didn't go for it. And if you see here, it's very steep, and that's very expensive to build on. So you can do it, but it's just going to be a little bit more of a project. And if you're a beginner at it, you might not want to tackle this. Again, I'm no expert. I just know what I know because I've looked for myself and for other people. Experts, I would say, are people who build actively and do that. Okay, so we have here, this property is going out, and there seems to be this common road, which is like really important for getting your supplies there. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the lending part of this. So one thing that's important for lenders, and as I mentioned before, you can get loans pretty easily on traditional houses and townhouses and condos, but for land, it's a little trickier. And I only know of one person who works in the Bay and does reasonable land loans. And their requirement, they said, is that it has to have water and electricity to get the best rates. And that's because that makes it a better property to build on. When you buy a piece of land, you want to build on it or develop it into its best and highest use case. And often that means that there is water and utilities on the property, so you can get that going. There's a lot of other things about lending that you'll want to know if you are even remotely considering this. And I recommend you start with the lender before you start looking at land. So you want to start by finding the lender. I have a great one that I work with, and you'll talk to him and you'll say, okay, what are the requirements? And the reason I'm not going to name them here is because they're always changing, and it depends, again, on the lot. And then you'll send them the lot and they can help analyze it with you. Of course, you'll ask the agent too for all the documents you need so that you can work with your lender. But starting with the lender is really, really important for land. So yeah, I think I've covered some of the big pieces. I could go on and on about particulars. I will say there was one that I was working with a client on that, well, there's been a few that don't have road access, and those are really difficult because you've got to talk to the neighbors. And in some counties, I don't know about every county, it's required that there's a road to get to it, so that if you have to call 911, people can come get you, and you can bring supplies to it. And I don't know exactly why that's a rule, but imagine you don't have a helicopter. You need to have a road to your property. So you got to talk to the neighbors and see if you can get road access. So that can be really a big problem if there's no access. Other issues are maybe the water line is really far down. like maybe it's a mile away. So you got to get water access through multiple parcels to that plot of land you're looking at. That might be so expensive that it doesn't make that plot worth it. So as you can see, I can go on and on, but this is why I personally just went with the house. I don't know if I said this in this video, but my family has a large property in a rural area, and it does not have utilities. And let me tell you, not having utilities is not fun. We were taking giant barrels of water in my dad's truck growing up to go water the plants. And I remember telling my dad, what are we doing? Why did we go grow grass in a place with no running water? Why don't we build a well? And that always had me confused. But eventually the grass died and we didn't regrow the grass. The other thing too is like we needed to have 2 generators. So unless you're a real like big prepper personality, don't think you want that either. Yeah, hopefully this helped you like get a little bit more information on how plots work. Again, I would recommend you just, if you're new and you don't have time and you don't want to become an expert in building and make it like your 1 to 2 year plus project, then I would recommend just getting a house, condo, or TIC unit, and it would probably end up a lot cheaper as well. I know like there's a reason why those properties you see that are brand new construction are going for 1.5, 2 million, 3 million plus like dollars. It's because it was so much risk for the builders to build that they want to get a big spread of profit for all the risk they carried. One more thing I'll add here too is around 2016, I used to host a lot of meetups, and we'd have builders who went bankrupt during the recession come, and they'd tell us what happened to him. And developing is like a very risky endeavor, and you have to know what you're doing, or be very committed and ready for hiccups to occur, because they will occur, even to the smartest people. And if you're a developer watching this, you might be laughing and know a lot more than me, and I would love to have you on the show sometime. And yeah, I'll end it with that just to keep this a little bit short, and hope you learned something interesting, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.